Shalom Aleichem Internet, my name is Rabbi Sender Gajzinski, and here is the weekly TorahByte. We find ourselves in challenging times with the coronavirus, and all of us are in isolation, and sometimes it's very difficult to find inspiration, to feel holy as we sit outside and deprived of the ability to go to synagogue, etc. And so it makes the message in this parsha, this week's Torah portion, all the more important, almost tailor-made for the situation we find ourselves in. It's a double portion, and the second Torah portion is Parshat Kedoshim, and it begins with the statement, Kedoshim to you, you shall be holy. Why? And the way the Torah answers that is relatively baffling. You shall be holy, not because it's the right thing to do, not because that's what you were created for, not because it will benefit the world and yourself, but God says, you shall be holy because I am holy, says God. Now that's puzzling because A, there are so many things that God is that I'm not, and I couldn't even attempt to be, because that's why He's God and I'm a human being. So be holy because I am holy as the reason? Now, again, if you want to say God, if God wants to say, I'm holy and I want you to pursue holiness because that's your purpose, because it's a good and important thing to do, that I can work with. But what does that mean, be holy because I am holy? What am I supposed to do with that? And to understand this, we'll do the typical Jewish thing. We'll answer this question with another question. What is holiness in the first place? Is holiness to put my nose in a book and learn all day, to go to the synagogue and pray all day? What is holiness? Now, if we look at the list of mitzvot that immediately follow that statement, that seem to be a definition of what it means to pursue holiness, we will find that the mitzvot seem to be a lot more down to earth than one would otherwise assume the pursuit of holiness looks like. Listed among those mitzvot are having respect for your parents, not cheating in business, do not take revenge, and the famous v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love your fellow as you love yourself. In other words, it seems to be that holiness is a lot more practical than generally I would assume holiness is. And that's an important point that God is mentioning. Kedoshim to you, be holy. Ki kadosh ani, because I am holy. Or be holy in the way that I am holiness. Holy. I will define holiness for you, not the way that perhaps you think. Too many things we define by our own subjective perspective. What is good? That which I perceive is good. What is bad? That which my sensibilities revolt against and say is bad. What is worthwhile? That which I deem is worthwhile. And that could look very different than yours. When it comes to being holy, God does not leave this up to us. He says, be holy in the way that I am holy. Be holy as I define holiness. And most of us, if we are just, in a sense, assuming and using our own logic about holiness, the word holiness actually comes in Hebrew. The word kadosh means separate and elevated, so that I would assume that holiness would look like something that has me shunning my materialism, shunning my connection to the mundane, and in a percent pursuing a more elevated, a more spiritual state. That would be what the definition of holiness is. And fascinatingly, God is here to tell us that's not what my version of holiness looks like. My version of holiness is everywhere and in everything, in the spiritual and in the mundane. Because I am everywhere, and wherever I am is holy. And that's the kind of holiness I want you to pursue. I challenge you to pursue. I challenge you not to shun the mundane. I challenge you to assume that holiness cannot just be achieved in the synagogue or in a spiritual environment. But holiness can be found in your workplace when you go about your business honestly. It can be found in your home when you show respect to the people of your family. It can be found in your social setting as you give to everybody the same amount of courtesy that you would like for yourself. And into each of these situations and to each aspect of your reality, be it spiritual or be it mundane, you imbue it with a sense of refinement, a sense of purpose. You elevate it to holiness. Don't elevate to holiness by turning your back on the world, but take the world itself and elevate it to holiness. And so one does not need to be in synagogue to be holy. So while to a certain degree we are deprived of that opportunity in this circumstance we find, we are not deprived from making every moment a moment full of purpose and full of holiness. So perhaps we have to challenge ourselves a little bit better. If we're not feeling particularly holy, then we need to redefine how we measure holiness, how we define holiness, and challenge ourselves to find holiness in the corners of our life that we all of a sudden are spending a lot more time in than we otherwise would. We're spending so much more time with family, so much more time in our dwelling, in the place that is our most centered. How holy can we make that space? How holy can we make that dynamic? That's the challenge that this week's Torah portion is setting before us. Let's go out and do it. Let's define it, by the way, as God defines it, with mitzvot. Let's make it holy in the way God asks us to make it holy. Let's light Shabbat candles this Friday night and bring that holiness into our homes. Let's put up a tzedakah box and deposit tzedakah. Let's learn a little Torah in our home. Let's engage our family and talk to them about holy ideas. Let's bring holiness into every aspect of our lives. Shabbat Shalom.